Thank you very much for this introduction. So my talk is about trying to figure out ways on enhancing the Internet of Things. We all know that Internet of Things has a vision of changing our everyday lives, of introducing intelligence to the things, the devices that surround us. And we have so many such devices. Examples are already illustrated in this slide. Smart wearables, computers, laptops, smart home appliances. So these devices and appliances belong to many industries and sectors. We have a large increase in the number of IoT devices. In this slide, it is shown that the IoT devices will approximately reach about 25.5 billion devices in 2025. Along with the non-IoT devices, this number will surpass 30 billion devices. So we have a complex network of heterogeneous devices, and this complex network, unfortunately, introduces many complexities in studying the security aspects of the devices and the networks that are being formed dynamically over time and with so many types of devices. Legacy devices, smart devices, devices that have strong security controls, and devices that have so many design flaws. So there are many attacks that can be formed and target such type of devices. These attacks can, for example, take advantage of design flaws in legacy IoT devices that have hard-coded passwords, or they have or they don't have the capacity of fixing vulnerabilities, delivering patches to the installed devices. And these devices are being used for so many years in many critical sectors. So this is the main motivation behind this work. And we have seen in the past few years so many attacks that have already targeted such type of devices. Attacks that are, in some cases, well known, but the defenses that are already in place were not capable of stopping the attacks. Such an example is the MRI botnet that you see in the slide. That was a major DDoS attack in around mid-2016, but still exists, as you see in the slide, in mid-17. So we have major vulnerabilities being exploited massively due to the large number of IoT devices. And again, due to this massive number of devices being easily to exploit, such attacks are very hard to deal with. So how can, this is the main question of this talk, how can blockchain help us to mitigate, to defend our infrastructure against such type of attacks? We know that blockchain has many favorable properties. Apart from transparency, trust, security, immutability, and verifiability are properties that are very favorable in such applications. We have already seen in the past few years that there have been applications of blockchain in the security sector. For example, there have been products and applications targeting identity security to block identity theft and to counter man-in-the-middle attacks. We have also seen applications of blockchain towards safeguarding the security of our data, either confidentiality or integrity, or other important properties of data. And the properties of data that we are trying to safeguard are important for businesses. Apart from this, we have already seen communication security being implemented by means of blockchain-oriented platforms. So this is an example of applications that have been proposed for the IoT sector, and there have already been some of them targeting the security domain, as you may see. And these platforms have many characteristics. Either they are rely on the Ethereum or they are multi-platform based solutions. So if we want, for example, to try to protect our devices, our IoT devices, from such attacks, exploiting, as I mentioned earlier, well-known for years vulnerabilities, then one might consider trying to be able in detecting efficiently, accurately, and with quite speed the vulnerabilities being exploited. For example, such attacks commonly tamper with the software that the devices use to run, for example, firmware. So one of the ideas that have been proposed is to try to record critical devices information in some trusted root that is device independent, and this trusted root blockchain is a good candidate for realizing such a scenario. In the slide, we already see that we might, for example, record devices properties on the blockchain. So we have a registration type of devices on the blockchain, and this registration, upon a clean copy of the device, will be able to provide us with this information that we can rely on, so that afterwards we will be able to detect such type of attacks. There are a lot of questions, as you might already see, regarding how this can be modeled, how efficient this is, if this is scalable, what performance issues are being the main issue factors here. So I will be partly talking about the approach that has been taken in one of the European projects. So this project is CyberTrust. We have been trying to build trusted roots of authority, and these roots of authority are relying on the blockchain. So we are using the DLTs as the key building block in recording critical devices files, so that this information is afterwards used for advanced remediation solutions. And on top of that, we are also using the blockchain in order to derive advanced forensic evidence collection and sharing processes. So you see here that the central role of this slide is the blockchain in the middle of the slide, where we have entities like law enforcement agencies, users, owing devices, or owners of infrastructure, interplaying with other players like IoT service providers, and all these players have some form of interaction with the blockchain. So this type of infrastructure is supported by an entity that you see here being denoted as CyberTrust Security as a Service. So as I mentioned, there are plenty of aspects to be discussed regarding the architecture, whether it should be permissionless or permissioned. In such type of applications, of course, we need to have a high throughput and storage capacity. And depending on what we want to do, the type of blockchain is based on the requirements of the application. So for example, in registering critical information of the devices, information on patches and firmware, then permissionless blockchains will be used for such type of information in order to be recorded. If we want, for example, to record information and integrity checks on information, configuration files, log files, whatever critical information we see fit in keeping healthy, then this should be recorded on a permissioned blockchain. So the approach taken by this European project is that we are allowing some form of interaction between the users of the devices with the major players that provide services to the users. So we see here in this slide that the validators of the blockchain will be the major players, ISPs, critical infrastructures, and telecom operators. And these will be the ones that will actually interact with other entities in the project. The project has two main areas that focuses on applying blockchain technologies. One of these areas is the smart home environment, and the other area is the mobile communications in terms of machine-to-machine communications between the mobile devices. And there are other, of course, European efforts towards that direction. For example, the Ghost project is another project with similar ideas in applying blockchain towards safeguarding the smart home environment. There are plenty of aspects to discuss, but I have to skip a few slides due to time limitations in order to proceed a bit further. Just to mention here that one of the key decisions in the project is that Hyperledger Fabric will be one of the choices to support the project. So this is a high-level overview of the solution. So we have information being gathered through the smart home environment by means of a smart home gateway. The smart home gateway communicates with a cloud-based solution that is supported by an ISP, one of the major players validating the blockchain. And this information is communicating through the gateway, a smart home gateway, to the ISP that will collect all the necessary forensic data in case of cyber attacks. So the main idea here is that once we have checked the information on devices that we are communicating with, for example, if we have already some feedback on the healthiness of a smart fridge that we might interact, then such type of communications will be allowed, whereas others will be discarded. I will proceed a bit further to the conclusions, and this is another slide that gives more details about how this information is gathered by means of the smart home gateway. The ISP is responsible for generating the blocks, for generating the transactions and publishing these transactions in the blockchain. Now, one of the main concepts that we need to mention here is that since we are, the main idea of this scenario was to keep evidence that an attack has occurred, so that afterwards this type of information will be used in courts or for justifying any ill-behaved behavior or communication of a device. So in order to be certain that this type of protocol will properly incentivize the players that maintain its integrity, then one of the key aspects that have to be considered are aspects that ensure that our blockchain is healthy. And such aspects are liveness, fairness, chain quality, that ensure that even though some of the players are acting maliciously in terms of trying to put falsified information in the blockchain, that such attacks will be mitigated. And since we are talking about keeping information in the blockchain, that information will be subsequently used for storing and using forensic evidence, then surely one of the critical aspects that one has to consider is the security of the crypto stuff that is being used in the blockchain. And towards that direction, and having in mind that we have quantum computers coming in the next, let's say, decade, at least according to the cryptographers, then we should take that into account when choosing cryptographic elements, for example, providing digital signatures and this kind of stuff. This is the end of my talk. I hope that you will have any questions that can be addressed later during the break. Thank you a lot.